Back then, the sky stretched endlessly above us, a vast, unforgiving canvas of blue and clouds, and below, the world seemed small, almost fragile, like a model waiting to be destroyed or saved. We were young men then, some just boys, really, wide-eyed and eager, hearts hammering with a mix of fear and excitement that only comes when you know the world might end tomorrow. But today we had wings. They called us the Red Tails, the Tuskegee Airmen, though for some of the Germans we were a joke, a curiosity, a mistake of the world, colored pilots in planes they assumed couldn't match theirs. I remember the first time I saw them mocking us, smirks in their voices over the radio, taunts whispered across the lines of battle like shadows sneaking in. And I'll admit, it stung. Pride is a quiet thing until it's challenged, until it's tested in the roar of engines, the metal and fire of combat. But what they didn't understand was that skill and courage don't wear a color, don't bend to prejudice, and don't respect their arrogance. Every morning, as the sun rose over the airfields, painting the horizon in gold and red, we climbed into our planes with hearts pounding and hands trembling, yet determined to prove not just our worth, but the worth of every man who had ever been doubted because of the color of his skin. And the training. Oh, the training was merciless. Hours in simulators, endless drills, the taste of sweat and oil and fear, all mixed into one. The instructor shouting, correcting, pushing us beyond exhaustion until we learned that hesitation meant death and precision meant life. We learned to read the sky, the clouds, the shadows of other planes, the slightest hint of movement that could spell the difference between survival and catastrophe. And slowly, painfully, we began to see that the mockery of others, the sneers, the laughter, the underestimation was becoming our weapon. Then came our first missions, and the world shifted. Bombers high above, exposed, vulnerable, their crews trusting us to shield them from the predators in the air, and every maneuver we made was a delicate dance of life and death. I remember the smoke, the sudden flashes of gunfire, the rumble of engines shaking through my bones as we twisted, banked, and dove to protect what others called a doomed formation. And then, the first kill. A German fighter spinning out of control, fire licking its wings, and a hush fell over us. The thrill, the terror, the unspoken bond between men who had survived together, all mingling in one heartbeat. And from that day, the Red Tails legend began. Names like Lee Archer, Benjamin Davis, and the others became whispers in the sky, shadows of vengeance and protection. Pilots who defied every expectation and every prejudice. Each sortie we flew, each bomber we saved, each enemy plane we downed, it was a quiet revolution, unseen at first, but unstoppable. Funny, isn't it? Those same pilots who had once laughed, who had dismissed us as inconsequential, now counted their losses in hushed tones, muttering our names with grudging respect, while we simply kept flying, kept fighting, kept proving that courage was the truest measure of a man. And as the tally climbed, kill after kill, mission after mission, over 100 by the end, so too did the truth. The sky does not lie, the air does not care about skin, and skill, when tempered with heart, could topple assumptions stronger than any engine or armor. And yet, amidst the adrenaline and glory, there were moments of quiet fear, friends lost, planes burning, the ground below both a promise and a threat. And in those moments we whispered to ourselves, prayed silently, and held on to the bond that only men who fly together under fire can know. A bond forged in the heat of battle, strengthened by trust, and remembered long after the war ended. The red tails had arrived, not with fanfare or ceremony, but with courage, with fire, and with wings that carried not just men, but a message that would echo through history. Underestimate us at your peril, because we were ready, willing, and unstoppable. The first time we faced them head-on, the sky seemed to close in around us, a vast arena where skill clashed with arrogance, and every heartbeat counted like a drum of war. I remember looking across the formation, seeing the fear in the eyes of men who had trained for this moment yet could not fully know what awaited them, and feeling a strange mix of dread and exhilaration, like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing the fall might kill you, but the leap could change everything. The German pilots, confident and haughty, swooped in with their Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs, guns blazing, thinking us easy prey, laughing even as we twisted and turned to avoid their fire. But we were ready. Every maneuver, every roll, every dive was precise, a dance we had rehearsed 1,000 times, and slowly the balance began to shift. I remember the first exchange, the flash of guns, tracer lines streaking across the sky like fiery threads, the roar of engines vibrating through my chest, and the sudden realization that fear could be controlled, channeled into focus, into skill. And then it happened. The first red tail to score a kill, a German fighter spiraling down, and for a brief moment the sky fell silent, as if it too had acknowledged the truth we carried with us. We were not to be underestimated. That moment changed everything. The Germans who had mocked us, who had whispered dismissive words into their radios, now hesitated. They began to recognize that these pilots, these men they had ridiculed, moved with a precision and audacity that few could match. And with each mission, with each bomber we protected, our reputation grew. Stories spread along the lines of battle, tales of men who would dive into fire without hesitation, who would shield bombers at the cost of their own safety, who moved through clouds and flak with the calmness of men who had seen death and refused to fear it. And the camaraderie, it was something words cannot fully capture. In the heat of battle, a glance, a nod, a quick gesture could save a life, signal a maneuver, or warn of danger unseen. We became more than a squadron, we became a unit of trust, bonded by smoke, fire, and the shared knowledge that every decision mattered, every split second could be the difference between life and loss. And as the tally of victories climbed, 1, 2, 3, then dozens, the laughter of our detractors turned to murmurs, the sneers into grudging respect. We began to hear stories from the other side, tales of pilots recalling the red tails, of German squadrons wary of their next encounter, of commanders adjusting plans because they knew the men they had once marked would not be so easily defeated. It was a slow revolution, fought not with speeches or banners, but in the clouds above Europe, where men like Lee Archer, Alfred W. Perry, and the others carved a path of excellence that would leave a permanent mark on history. And amidst the adrenaline and danger, there were moments of quiet reflection, of homesickness, of longing for the families and lives we had left behind. Yet even in those moments there was pride. Pride in skill, pride in courage, and pride in knowing that every flight, every kill, every bomber saved was a statement that talent and bravery transcend color, and that we could shape history with our wings. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the sky changed, not just in who controlled it, but in what it meant, in how a generation of pilots, long underestimated, had begun to claim their place, soaring not just for victory, but for respect, for honor, and for a truth that the world could no longer ignore. And then came the missions that would etch our names into history, the ones whispered about long after the smoke cleared, when the men on the ground and the crews in bombers would speak our names with awe, gratitude, and sometimes disbelief. I remember the first time we escorted a formation of B-17s deep into enemy territory, skies thick with flak, the air tense with the knowledge that one mistake, one hesitation could send men tumbling from the heavens. We were told it was impossible, that no colored pilots had flown so far, faced so much, and survived. But as the engines roared to life, as the red tails formed up in perfect lines, as the bombs fell below and the enemy planes came at us with fire in their eyes, we became something greater than ourselves. Each maneuver was poetry in motion. A dive here, a roll there, a protective circle around the bombers that felt as natural as breathing, even when adrenaline hammered through our veins and the sky itself seemed to rage against us. I remember Lee Archer pulling off a move that seemed impossible, twisting and banking in a blur of metal and courage, taking down 2 fighters before most of us even realized what had happened. And the exhilaration that followed, the laughter, the shouts, the unspoken pride among us was as sweet as any victory we had imagined back home. And the Germans, the same pilots who had mocked us, who had laughed and called us unworthy, were now learning a lesson written in fire and precision. Each kill we scored, each bomber we protected, each sortie we returned from with every plane intact, chipped away at their arrogance, replacing it with caution, respect, and sometimes fear. I remember nights in the air, clouds glowing orange from distant fires, the hum of engines carrying whispers of prayers, hopes, and memories of home, of family, of the life we had paused to fight for. And yet, even in the midst of chaos, the Red Tails carried on with a focus that was almost sacred, knowing that behind every bomber was a crew counting on us. Behind every enemy plane was a challenge to prove ourselves. And behind every mission was the chance to rewrite history, one dogfight at a time. There were moments so tense, so fragile, that I could feel my own heartbeat echoing in my ears, as if the sky itself were holding its breath. And when we returned, battered but alive, the smiles, the embraces, the quiet words of thanks from bomber crews reminded us why we flew, why we fought, why we endured. And slowly the legend grew, not just in the tally of over 100 kills, not just in the whispered respect of enemy pilots, but in the hope we inspired, the barriers we broke, the proof that courage, skill, and heart could overcome prejudice, mockery, and expectation. Every mission became more than a battle. It became a statement, a promise, a legacy. And as we flew through flak, smoke, and fire, we weren't just red tails anymore. We were symbols of something larger, a truth carried on wings, soaring above hatred, fear, and doubt, leaving trails in the sky that no one could ignore, and reminding the world with every dive and climb, with every victory and narrow escape, that talent and bravery recognize no color, and that history can be rewritten by those bold enough to take to the sky. And then, as the war began to wind down and the smoke of battles faded from the skies, we found ourselves looking back, not with the same fear or adrenaline, but with a quiet, heavy pride that settled in our bones, a feeling that no medal, no accolade could ever fully capture. The Red Tails had flown farther, fought harder, and accomplished more than anyone had believed possible, and the world had finally seen what we always knew. Courage, skill, and heart are not bound by color, and heroes come in every shade. I remember walking across the empty airfields, the engines quiet now, the planes resting like exhausted giants, thinking of friends we had lost, of missions that had tested us to the brink, and of the countless lives saved by men who refused to be underestimated. And yet there was laughter too, quiet but persistent, the kind that comes from knowing you've done something impossible, something that will echo through history long after you're gone. Stories of our victories traveled across continents, whispered in the mess holes of enemy pilots, printed in newspapers, told around tables where people marveled at the bravery of men they had once doubted. And slowly, generations began to understand what we had endured, what we had achieved, and what it truly meant to rise above prejudice and fear. And as I think back now, decades later, I realize it wasn't just about the kills, the dogfights, or the battles. It was about proving that the human spirit, when tested, can soar higher than any plane, faster than any bullet, and brighter than any fire. We were ordinary men, called to extraordinary skies, and through our wings, our courage, and our unwavering determination, we became more than pilots. We became symbols of hope, resilience, and undeniable truth. Funny, isn't it, how the world that laughed at us first now honors us? How mockery turned to respect, how doubt became awe. And as the sun sets on my memory, painting the skies in gold and crimson like it once did over the airfields, I hope those listening remember this. Fly with courage, fight with honor, and never let anyone tell you what you cannot do. And if you enjoyed this story, if it moved you even a little, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the legacy of the Redtails, because their story and ours deserves to soar again and again in every heart that listens. Years have passed since the roar of engines and the flash of guns, yet the memory of those skies remains, etched in my mind like the trails of smoke that once marked our victories, twisting and turning across the horizon, reminders that courage leaves a trace even after the battle is over. The men I flew with, the friends I lost, the challenges we faced, they are all a part of me, and I carry their stories still, quietly, like whispered prayers beneath the hum of a modern plane, beneath the noise of a world that sometimes forgets the price of valor. I think often of the young boys who watched the skies back then, dreaming of flight, who may have never imagined that men like us, men who had been doubted, laughed at, and underestimated, would rise to protect, to inspire, and to change history. And that is the true legacy of the Redtails. Not just the kills, the dogfights, or the awards, but the doors we opened, the barriers we broke, the courage we sparked in those who came after us, proving that skill, honor, and determination cannot be measured by race, but by heart. Even now, decades later, when I hear the distant hum of a jet, I feel that old rush, the same rush that carried us into flak-filled skies over Europe, that drove us to protect bombers, to outmaneuver enemies, and to defy every expectation. And I smile because I know that each life saved, each mission flown, each enemy plane downed was part of something bigger, part of a story that transcends history books, transcends medals, transcends time itself. The world may have changed, yet the lessons remain. Never underestimate courage, never dismiss talent, never forget that even those who are doubted can rise, soar, and leave a legacy that echoes through generations. And so, to everyone listening, to everyone who remembers, who learns, who dreams, carry this with you. Fly higher in your own battles, fight bravely for what matters, and never let anyone define your limits. And if this story touched you, if the courage of the Red Tails inspired even a flicker of pride or hope, then let it live on, like the trails of smoke in the sky, like the roar of engines that once echoed across Europe. Share it, honor it, and remember it. And of course, if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue uncovering the incredible tales of bravery, courage, and history that deserve to be heard, felt, and never forgotten.
And as I look back one last time, I see the skies not as battlefields, but as a place where ordinary men did extraordinary things, where courage soared higher than any plane, and where history was written not with ink, but with fire, skill, and heart. The Red Tails weren't just pilots, they were pioneers, heroes, and a reminder that even in a world full of doubt, mockery, and prejudice, bravery can shine through and change everything. I think of the young men who trained in those dusty airfields, the long nights spent studying tactics, the friendships forged in smoke and adrenaline, and the moments of quiet hope that carried us through the storm. And it all comes back to one simple truth. Greatness doesn't ask for permission, it doesn't wait for approval, and it certainly doesn't care who doubts it. We flew, we fought, we protected, and in doing so, we left a trail for the world to follow, a reminder that courage can't be measured by skin, but by the heart, the mind, and the will to rise when the world expects you to fall. And now, to everyone listening, to everyone inspired, remember this. History is full of stories like ours, waiting to be heard, felt, and shared. And if this story moved you, if it made your heart race or your spirit lift even for a moment, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we uncover more tales of bravery, courage, and unforgettable history. Your support keeps these stories alive, soaring across screens and through generations, just like the Red Tails soared across the skies. Thank you for listening, for remembering, and for believing that even the most improbable heroes can leave a legacy that touches us all.